Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Peter Barber. I'm primarily a professional opera singer, music producer, and bass vocalist. And today, for the first time ever, truly, I'm going to be digging into my expertise. We are going to be checking out and breaking down one of the most famous scenes in opera, one of the best scenes in all of opera, one that I have the pleasure of performing right now. Last night was my second performance as Don Giovanni in Don Giovanni at the Academy of Vocal Arts in Philadelphia. And this is the absolutely legendary commendatore scene from that. And this video we're going to be watching is, in my opinion and most people's opinion, the best version of this scene performed within the last 30 or 40 years. Only to be rivaled really by, the mid-20th century performances where you have people like Siepi playing Don Giovanni, you have, Giotti playing Commendatore, you have Flagello playing Leporello, names like that, legendary old-time, Italian names like that. But today this is going to be the version with Samuel Raimi as Don Giovanni, Ferruccio Furlanetto as Leporello, and Kurt Mall as Commendatore. This is going to be a very long video, I'm sure. There's going to be a lot to talk about. You guys will get to see me actually dig really deep into operatic technique and other musical aspects. I have my score here with me, just in case you want to get in there. So, this is actually, if I flip a few pages, this is actually it. This is the commendatore scene. So we'll have that just in case I feel like referencing it, but obviously I know all the notes and pitches and words and everything, all the translations, of course, because I'm singing the damn thing. Obviously, this is going to be an analysis, so there will be a lot of pause, extensive pausing to talk about what is happening. There will be extensive ogling at these amazing singers that, I've been watching this scene for 10, 12 years. It's a dream to finally get to perform it. A lot of people have been asking me to do some videos on opera stuff because I am an opera singer. So, you see the direct commentary on what I do versus, what these guys do. It should be really interesting, and I'm expecting it to be extensive. So this is a 7-minute scene. I'd be shocked if this took less than an hour. Obviously, you guys can already see the timestamp if you're, watching this as it's published, whenever that happens. Today is April 30th. I do have a meeting in about an hour and a half, so I'm going to try and keep it under an hour and a half, but, who knows? Yeah, let's break it down. Let's break down, in my opinion, the best scene in all of opera. It really, I believe that to be true. Please do like this video. Please subscribe to the channel. Hit the bell for notifications. Leave a comment for the algorithm. It could be as simple as "Hi Peter" or "Samuel Raimi is the bomb" or "Commendatore scene rocks." Doesn't matter. Good for the algorithm. And if I'm adding value to your experience, this will add a lot of info to your operatic palette if you want to dig deep with me here. So if I do that, please do consider joining my Patreon for as little as $1 a month. And let's just dive in. There's no point in rushing because this is gonna be exhaustive. So let's get into it. So just quick backstory. So this show is the first show that trombones were ever used in opera. And I believe the first scene they were ever used was, no, they might be in the overture as well. I'm not actually sure. I haven't checked out the full orchestral score. But they for sure are like a sign, they're like a symbol of the commendatore, of like this kind of epic badassness. Trombone, so that's super cool. D minor is the main theme for the show. It's how the show starts. There's a lot of stuff in D minor. This whole scene is pretty much in D minor. So a lot of the high notes you'll hear are D4s, which is like technically a high D for a bass voice. Traditionally, the role of Giovanni is generally sung by baritones because it takes a very flexible bass voice to be able to do it. But a lot of the great Giovannis in history have been basses, like Cesare Siepi and Samuel Raimi and Il Liberando d'Arcangelo, Brent Terfel, bass baritone. because it's really cool when you can get a Giovanni with that darker color. So as a bass singing Giovanni, it's an honor, and I do think it adds something special because there are low enough notes in the roll where if you can stay really full down there, it adds something as opposed to just being comfy on the higher stuff. What makes this scene great, and this is actually relatively rare because both Giovanni and Leporello even nowadays are sometimes sung by baritones. I don't know why Leporello is ever sung by baritone, but it does happen. This scene, you have Kurt Moll, one of the lowest basses in operatic history. You have Remy, a very legitimate bass who is super flexible with crazy high notes, and Ferruccio Furlanetto, a very legitimate low bass that sings all the dramatic bass reps. So you have like one of the bassiest versions of this scene also in history. And something really cool about this production we're doing at Academy of Vocal Arts is when I'm the Giovanni, we have me who's I call myself a bass baritone. I could surely call myself a lyric bass, just like a bass with high notes, essentially. Griffin Hogan Tracy is our commendatore, who is a very low bass, very, very low bass. And actually, fun fact, we get a lot of our costumes from the Metropolitan Opera, where this scene is taking place in this video. And Griffin is actually wearing the cape. He's actually wearing the cape that Kurt Moll wore in this production you're watching right now, which is super sick. I asked our costumer if she could give me any Samuel Ramey clothing. Unfortunately, she couldn't, but that's just a fun fact. So me, bass, Griffin, bass, and then both the Leporellos are either a bass or bass baritone. So we are actually doing a particularly bassy version of this scene when it's me doing the Giovanni. The other Giovanni, who unfortunately has been sick the last few days, is Benjamin Dickerson, a fellow AVA singer, phenomenal baritone, but very much a baritone. So in those versions, it's two basses and a baritone. When I sing it, it's three basses. So that's pretty sick. All right, let's back it up. Okay, crazy bass voice. So this first passage, A3, A3, D4, D3. I'm singing an octave down right now for the time being. So Don Giovanni. Now you'll hear Kurt Moll very, very open on that Italian A vowel because really that's kind of as high as you want to be singing. If you're a low bass, that's kind of as high as you want to be singing what's called totally open before you start figuring out how to navigate with your secondo passaggio, where you start doing like vowel modification and such like that. Mozart said it like this because the highest note that you sing fully open without any kind of covering is going to be very likely the loudest note in your range. So what he did is he put it in D minor, so it's got that dark kind of feeling already because it's minor, and then he just wrote tons and tons of high Ds for both Giovanni and for commendatore, so that a lot of this scene you have the orchestra blasting and you have Giovanni and commendatore blasting at the top of their like fully open range. So like that note, Don Giovanni, that high D there is going to be crazy loud because Kurt Moll is a basso profundo. That's going to be the highest note he's going to want to take fully open in his range. And I'll just be pointing out little things about how we opera singers modify vowels. So Don Giovanni, E. Generally to maintain that darkness and space, in addition to all the other classical technique elements, you're going to turn that E into more of an E. Vanni, E, instead of E, like a bright E. And that you still get just as much cut in the sound because of the tongue position, really. But you maintain warmth and roundness to the sound as opposed to being bright So pay attention to that and watch the lips rounding for that E. It turns almost more into like a French U when you sing that vowel to maintain that color. It's blurry, but you can, if you look real well, I don't know if you'll be able to see it on the tiny little screen, but Kurt Mahl's going Vani like that. Acenarteco. He doesn't roll that R, which normally would be, if you're going to be really true, clean Italian, Cenarteco. There you go. Mean V instead of mean V. Mean me, mean me. So he's keeping that warmth by rounding those lips, even on that pure Italian E vowel. That's as open and bright as you're going to see a bass mouth in opera like this, because we're almost always round. I mean, pretty much every voice type in most of the range, we're going to be rounding slightly to keep a little bit more warmth in the sound, a little bit more warmth and darkness. So if you see someone going, they are like fully wide open mouth, bright sound, high volume. So that's low A. Right? Now, something that you just cannot possibly comprehend unless you have done it is how absurdly powerful you have to have low notes. Like, look, when I'm talking about a cappella music and shit like that, the stuff is way lower because it's all studio produced. To be able to sing even down to a low A, in opera that's a low A, against an orchestra, you have to have so much power down there for it to be heard. Seriously, I can't even. It is like you have to be able to yell at that pitch with like breath support and vibrato. So you can tell it's a nice quality low A, but like I can't even imagine. Well, I can kind of imagine actually, like the power in that low A. If you're like right next to Kurt Mahl on stage, it would be shocking that someone could sing a note at that pitch that loud. Remy. So you can hear in Remy's voice. So Remy also a bass, crazy low range, but Remy has just an absurd amount of cut in his sound, far more than Kurt Mahl, far more than a lot of singers. Because Remy, it is a beautiful voice, but it's not as beautiful and warm and round as like Cesare Siepi or some other basses of similar range. It is a beautiful voice, and he's a very elegant, kind of regal style singer, very top to bottom, so lined up and so consistent. But he has so much cut in his sound. And from what I've heard, he did have a big voice, but not a huge voice. Now, it would be huge to anyone outside of the opera world, but within the context of professional opera singing, he had a big voice, not an enormous voice, but he had so much cut in the sound. Like, it was just never an issue for Remy competing with orchestra. Let's keep going. Subito. So on, again, there's high Ds we hear. Fortunately, so, you know, by the time I'm singing this and by the time Remy's singing this, our voices are crazy warmed up. So like, to be able to sing that fa che subito si porti, to have that subito on that D4 not sound yelly, it has to be so pocketed back in the voice and like so accessible And like for me, I need to be very, very warmed up to sing a true vowel open on a D and have it not sound yelly. And it doesn't sound yelly at all when Rami's doing it. Just like very easy access to that D4 that I mentioned a bunch. And in this scene, you do have to do a bit of vowel modification. Like you're gonna see him open up a lot of vowels because to keep them open, you just have to do that. There's a line later that just every vowel pretty much goes to an open position because you just have to keep the voice moving and keep pumping out a ton of sound. But I just wanted to flag that. Fa che subito si porti. He's gonna open up those D4s there a bit. Listen to that legato. So that's like singing through those non l'avrei mai creduto. Just like keeping the voice spinning through absolutely every possible note. Not making it choppy. This is like going for a super legato line. Those rolled R's, those M's. So leporello un'altra cena. That's easy. Open A. Now that subito goes closer to that A we just heard a minute ago to be able, again, to keep it open without getting yelly. Subito, subito si porti. So that's so Ferruccio does a little vocal effect here. A padron siam tutti morti. A padron siam tutti morti. So instead of singing the exact pitches, he kind of yells a bit on tutti morti, which like once you've learned the notes, once you've got everything totally solid, once it's in your bones, that's when you can intentionally start doing more speech-like things to add effects here and there. Like there are a number of parts in this show where I have my written pitches, I know the notes, I know the exact time length to hold each note, but instead I'll do them more like a yell and go off pitch, because if you're doing that all the time, you don't know no one can tell if you know the music or not. If you absolutely nail the music the whole time you're trying to, and then you throw in a few moments where you just yell off pitch basically, then it's like, oh, that's just like a cool effect, obviously an artistic choice. So Ferruccio here does that, of course. A padron, siam tutti morti, and he kind of yells the tutti. Also, Ferruccio, I have heard him live. I didn't get to hear Kurt Mall live, and I have not heard Rami live, and everyone's way past their prime at this point. This is from like 1990, early 1990s. Ferruccio has the biggest voice I have ever heard in person, no question. And obviously, you would never be able to tell that watching this clip. And that's because of his positioning near the microphone. And, for these recordings, they do balance them some later, so you can really only tell if you're there in the house or if they are standing right next to each other on stage. Then you can compare the two. You still can't tell how loud they are, but you can compare two voices if they're right next to each other on stage. So we get that later with Giovanni and Commendatore, and I'll talk about, the obvious differences between their voices when we get there. But this guy here singing now, the one that sounds quieter than the other two, one of the biggest voices in opera in the last however many years, like an absolute cannon of a voice. That guy. Yeah, I'm not kidding. Van. So all these guys, great, like very solid Italian. Vanedico. Vanedico is different. Vanedico. You got to have double consonants are so important in Italian. And a beginner singer, it will sound super choppy if they even do the doubles, which they probably won't. You have to actually be really experienced with Italian diction to nail the diction, obviously. But to be able to do the doubles and to make sure your voice keeps moving through it so it doesn't get choppy despite objectively cutting off the sound. Van, 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 you know, like it will get quieter, but to keep the voice moving through it is different. I kind of wish I was doing this analysis when I was like warmed up so I could, you know, like demonstrate some of these things. But like I said, you know, this is coming at the end of a 3-hour performance. Like when I was doing this, I don't know, what, 14 hours ago? Super, super warm, absolutely blasting away on all these high notes. But right now, the morning after, not going to happen. So you just have to take my word for it unless I warm up enough during this shooting session. So watch how Remy on Vanedico, that's how it would look. He goes Vanedico. It's like a very, very tall, stretched out, kind of towering eval, again, to accommodate volume and sound. It's gonna be louder if your mouth is a little bit more open. And I've mentioned before, it's almost all tongue that makes the vowel what it is. So you can do it's you can kind of stretch and mold the vowel. If you maintain the tongue position, you can make a much more open mouth position with it. So that's what you do. A lot of the times if you're singing an E vowel, it'll be like, but the tongue, because of the tongue position and how it goes along the top of the mouth, creates that E, those E vowel formants to make it sound like an E vowel, even if your mouth is wide open. It's all tongue position. So open E vowel on that high D. Ferma un po'. That's going to be a super loud note. That's as high as Kurt Mall is ever going to want to take that open E vowel, that high D. It's nice to have translations here too. So put a little bit of ah in that sound, mortale, and an open ah Italian, very bright ah Italian, very bright ah. That's a great way to use that word to put a little more cut and kind of bite in the sound. Commendatore has these huge sweeping lines where it's just like usually one or two breaths, super consistent vibrato. You're just going for the most legato, like cruise ship like sound, like cruise ship with a bunch of spike bombs on it. That's Commendatore's goal. You hear just these sweeping lines, and actually our conductor at AVA takes this scene very slowly, so like all of these lines are even more stretched out than what you hear in this case, and it is a test of endurance for sure. He's got his lips super rounded. You can see Kurt Mall is just opting very much, despite whatever vowel or words he's singing, to keep a pretty similar mouth position, because that is a way to have a cohesive sound, similar timbre, similar color, similar warmth, roundness, power. If you keep as many elements in the same spot as possible while still keeping the diction clear, it just works. It works so much better for the voice and for the listener too, as opposed to like changing your mouth position all over the place like you would in like musical theater, because the goal there is much more speech-like. It's much more forward and chatty in most cases, well, compared to opera singing, obviously. In opera singing, it's about the voice. You have to maximize your vocal potential and your vocal efficiency at all times, or you will get wrecked by the orchestra all the time, especially in a scene like this where it's, it's like, I heard somewhat recently while in this production, like the only thing left after singing Giovanni is Wagner. Now, it's not exactly true. Like, you think Mozart, you think like lighter voices, lighter singing. There's some big fucking singing in Giovanni. And this scene, like some of Donna's arias, or both her arias, are big, dramatic soprano singing, or at least full lyric. And then you have this commendatore scene where it's like you can have 3 dramatic basses on stage like you do here. And it totally works. It's not like, oh, little Mozartian singing. It's like, no, this is big shit. You are ripping it against the orchestra. Now it sounds so crazy because you just can't tell, but to have that low A he just sang, let me see, I can probably demonstrate some lows. Like, to maintain that power down to that low A to where you can hear it cleanly in this recording against the orchestra is insane. Obviously, when I'm doing now, I have a strong low A. Like, I have in an operatic setting, I do have very solid low notes down to not the profundo level, but down to like the average bass roll level. I actually do. I put a low A in this scene. Remy does the same thing. I got it from him. You'll see it later. But I'm telling you, it's so rare. It's rare even for a bass where in this particular line that I just demonstrated that you hear a consistency of sound and volume down through that low A. It sounds crazy, and I know it's hard to tell in this recording, but like our bass Griffin, who's doing it now, he's like, I mean, Griffin has like a huge low D, a full fifth below that low A, big full vibrato low D, right? And he's got it enough, you know. But it takes a voice like that to have that enough power to where that line stays strong through the end, because if that's not there, then the line, because it's getting lower, it kind of gets weaker and weaker. So you've got to have a crazy, it's the weird thing about commendatore. It's a role for dramatic bass voice, for a basso profundo if you've got one, but it doesn't go below this note. It doesn't go below A flat 2. So, you know, some beginner bass looks at this roll, they're like, that's not low. I can sing a low C. Bleh. Yeah. You need to have a crazy amount of power down there. You know, you're singing these notes against full orchestra, and the spectral envelope of the orchestra is very bass heavy. So like you have all this sound in the bottom part of the frequency spectrum, and then it really tapers off. So like sopranos don't really compete much. They're kind of sitting above it. You know, tenors singing high stuff, they're kind of sitting above it. And then of course their first, you know, as you get into the harmonic series, like their first harmonic, their second harmonic is like already above any issue. Basses are just like, it is like this with the orchestra. Like we are in the absolute meat of the orchestra. And so like we have to have tons of like raw power vocally, just like loud singing, and then tons of high harmonic content so that at some point our harmonic series starts cutting above the orchestra. But to sing a low A against an orchestra, like I'm telling you, it is Olympic level low note singing. Opera is Olympic style singing anyway, but like it's nutty. To be able to sing low notes and have them heard clearly over an orchestra is bananas. See, like when that orchestra goes, that is a wall of sound. That is an entire wall of sound. You can tell because in the recording, it sounds like his voice gets a lot quieter because then the orchestra is further competing with that headspace in the mix with Kurt Mahl's voice. See when he says, his voice isn't getting softer, but the orchestra comes in and there's just competition of sound. So it sounds like it pulls way back. altre cure. So, altre cure. You see, he's still opting for that position. Now, something really tough about commendatore, and I've been talking to Griffin about this, is it's so much middle voice. And middle voice is really tricky because it doesn't get that loud. And if you push at all, it just gets worse. It gets breathier. So you just have to sit back and like trust that you're putting out enough sound to be heard and not try to push. And it's really hard not to push in middle voice. And the whole commendatore scene for the commendatore is mostly in middle voice. Altre cure più gravi. Now I'm singing an octave down. But for him, it's just like, it's literally, that's an A3. That is just like, hey, this is exactly my middle voice. And I'm going to sing a whole freaking line right here and not push. And it's actually really difficult not to do and to get enough sound there. He did go to this L a little sooner than I would have suggested. Kind of goes altre, when really you want to keep that there as long as possible. Altre, like right at the end, but he kind of like morphs it. Instead of cure, like a pure Italian U, altre cure. Altre core. He's opting for that bigger, warmer sound. Also, just listen to the orchestra. See, that's just long line. Like, it's the funny thing about Mozart that I've discovered is you can sing a Mozart roll like shit and get through it. You can really hack your way through a Mozart roll and you'll be okay. Maybe not this scene, but most Mozartian passages you can hack your way through. Like, for God's sake, they just did a production of Don Giovanni at my undergrad. And you have undergrads, you have like 20-year-old kids singing Giovanni, like a 3-hour enormous role, and they get through it. They don't blow their voices out. They can get through the role, right? And then it gets weird. It's this thing where like you get better and better, and it almost gets harder. Probably because you start out singing Mozart in a pretty hack kind of shit way, and then you actually learn how to sing, and then you have to go back and apply that. And then it becomes harder because once you've learned how to sing, there's no hacking. So you're actually like singing fully on all those parts you were hacking, which is actually more tiring for the voice, really, somehow. It's really interesting. It's kind of a head fuck. But all to say, there are just these long sweeping lines where you really do. It's tough to hack your way through this scene, especially at a slow tempo. Like you're going to the grave. You're Giovanni does, well, no spoilers. You're gonna die if you try to hack your way through the scene, especially as commendatore. Like that's why usually if you go to an undergrad production like the one they did at my undergrad, however, a couple of years ago. I wasn't there. This is years after I left. They had a baritone singing commendatore, which makes sense because like it's a heroic. It is a big ass sing, and you've got to have crazy breath support and just be so grounded and solid to just stand there, literally like a statue, and just rip face and sing and support. And it's like, oh, what? It's only 7 minutes of singing? Yeah, but it's like 7 minutes of yelling. It really is physiologically like 7 minutes of like deep, and then like everything you have for 7 minutes, it's a whole, God, it's so fucking sick, honestly. It's so sick. It's crazy. It feels like a superhero like when you're really singing full out and you're just like yell level singing, it is a very uniquely cool feeling, especially when there's orchestra there and the costuming and the lights and all this stuff. It's like, I'll be honest, like I love my YouTube career. I love it. I love working with the bass gang so much. And for the last couple of years, you know, the institution I'm at's really tough. It's really tough, and it's like, do I really want to do this? Do I want to put in this much work on opera? Like, is it worth it? And honest to God, singing Giovanni, doing this role, has brought me back to being like, hell yeah, this is totally what I want to do, which is pretty cool. So that's where I'm at right now. That's why I'm doing this video. I'm like pretty jazzed about it. Oh, one more thing while I'm thinking of. This is actually the earring I wear as Giovanni in the show. I'll throw up some production photos here or in the intro or something for you guys to see. Again, guy singing, biggest voice I've ever heard. That's what's so deceptive about hearing opera via recording. No, he is going ba 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 ba. He's got this tiplet. He's got this Ferruccio here, Leporello, Giovanni's manservant, has this triplet pattern while Giovanni is saying, "Dude, what the fuck do you want? You know, parla dunque, che chiedi, che vuoi." And it's cool because Giovanni's staying in the duple, ba ba ba, and then Leporello is ba 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 ba. So you've got duple versus triple. Another thing Mozart loves to do multiple times in this very show. Again, watch that eval. Vuoi. It's not e. It's very tall and rounded. And Remy is actually he's a perfect singer. So perfect to the point, like so modified and consistent that that's probably what made his career a little shorter than it could have been. There was so much keeping the voice in the same place that it was a little bit. Opera's already not very natural, the technique itself, but Remy's was like pretty even more not natural because it was just so engineered. So, but Remy in his prime, like you hear him here, I mean, it is like every fucking note is like you cannot sing it any better. It is like absolutely robot level engineered. Every single note for resonance and space, and his Italian is crystal clear. It's like, it is an absolute masterclass on singing opera. So this is really interesting, and you get insight into what each singer has to do. So Kurt Moll clearly really likes an position. So all these vowels go to in a way when he's singing. Parla, ascolta, più tempo. Clearly, he just really, again, I'm singing an octave down. Clearly, he really, really likes that vowel position, and that vowel position feels right for his voice. And like, again, this is all this is B natural. This is still considered middle voice for bass. It quickly goes from middle to high voice. But like it quickly goes from like very comfortable to like, all right, now I got to start working. B natural, B3. Once you're a trained singer for a bass, that's a joke. It's nothing. So it's like once you get to that level of comfort and you've got your breast support, you just find the vowel position that works and you go for it because, again, you are competing against a blasting orchestra. So unless you're going, let's see. Parlo, ascolta, più tempo. So that would be doing all the vowels true, and he's just putting it all towards It's also easier in this part of my range I'm singing. It's much easier to do that. Like low voice, fucking whatever vowel you want kind of works. And but middle voice, you're kind of dealing with your primo passaggio right there. So you've got to vowel modify and do what works. Like his mouth position does not move. Aside from più tempo, his mouth position does not move. E3 to D4 for parla, parla, ascoltando ti sto. For Remy there. Fucking love these lines. They're so good. But again, like I said, up to that D4, big, open, loud note for bass voice. Più tempo, no, no. Più tempo, no, no. That's what I'm saying about vowel modifying. Those are all high Ds for Kurt Mahl, for that profundo voice. So he is opening up everything as close as he can to an ah vowel while still kind of like insinuating he's singing the proper Italian vowels. And that is totally the move on this. You do not want to, what are his words here? Parlo, ascolta, più tempo, no, no. He'd get drowned out. Open all that shit up. So I also do that low A. And I'm telling you, he is ripping it. Ripping that low A, and I know you can barely hear it in this recording. I'm telling you, I can't even. It would sound. Let me just demonstrate the last bit of it. I'm not. It's not going to be optimal, but the low A should be fine. Ascoltando ti sto. And I guarantee you Ramey's low A is louder than mine. Because he's like he's probably 51 in his absolute prime in this recording. And I can shred a low A. So it's crazy the balance and how misleading it is to hear this kind of thing. And if you can barely hear that low A, just imagine how loud these high notes are that you can hear super clearly. Huge, I'm telling you, huge. Huge low B flat. Huge. Huge, 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 huge. Kurt Mahl supposedly could sing down to F1 in chest voice, and I've heard him in an operatic setting sing to B flat, and I will play a clip right here of him obliterating a low C. Almost a full octave lower than this B flat you just heard, and it's a recording where you can actually tell how full it is. This is what we're up against in this scene. It is absolutely absurd what you have to be able to do in that part of your range with this orchestra. I'm getting jazzed thinking about it. I'm probably completely destroying this microphone, but I'm telling you, whatever I'm doing, he's doing it louder. Oh, big rolled R. Versai. He actually opts for a pretty closed tool there, which is surprising. Usually, historically, he's been more open on that. Yeah, B natural. That does get a little questionable because, B naturals are tough because it's easy to sing them closed, and if you try to sing them open, it gets too open in most cases. I can name a few examples from arias I work on that like you have to like have like this huge amount of space here with like a smaller vowel position. Like it's like you sing an ah and then just like turn it into an oo to keep enough space there. It's a very tricky note for the bass voice on that vowel. See, because then there's this, the reason you would avoid that is because now there's this huge disparity between tua, dover, toa, toa, toa. Really, you'd want to probably go for the open one because then then you get a smoother line as opposed to tua, you get toa, right? Shadow vowel, orasai, instead of just orasai, orasai. That's a way to just make the diction clearer and show a separation of syllables, essentially. It's called a shadow vowel. If you add like an or, I'll flag it. Orasai. Again, huge low C. You would consider this a low C in opera. Telling you. All right, fully open up to the C sharp. Really, that's kind of Kurt Moll's version of covering. So you got rispondimi and then rispondimi. You can. That is one way to cover, to navigate your passaggio, is to go towards more of an Morris Robinson is a current basso profundo that sings this role that certainly also opts for that position. In a master class with him one time, I was working on a passage about there, and he told me to put some in the sound, and it was actually really helpful. And watch that. He's not going respond. He's going respond. He's keeping everything open so he doesn't have to do a huge dramatic shift there. And this is getting high for our boy Kurt Moll. I mean, you can hear it. It's not easy. It's not easy for him up there. Shouldn't be. And Ferruccio, one of the great actors, and he is so willing to use whatever vocal color he needs to. You know, for him, it's not all about, he has one of the biggest voices on earth, but it's not about that for him. He is a true artist. I will link a video of him singing Ella Giammai Mamo from Don Carlo. And that's actually what I got to see him in. I got to see him sing Philip II in Don Carlo. And it's one of the most moving performances ever. It brings me to tears. I will leave a link for that. Tempo non ha scusate. Every note is perfect. Every note is sung perfectly. So C, E, I think D to B. Yeah. Wide open. So risolvi. Opens that to completely A. And then again, that rounded lip for the E. Listen to that use of the rolled R's to keep the line going. O già risolto. Just perfectly streamlining that vocal line through all the consonants. That is about where Kurt Moll maxes out, and that's where it's supposed to. That's a high E for profundo, super loud. It sounds pretty open. I think it's his version of the again. But he is hollering. You can tell there's a little extra breath coming through, right? The folds aren't quite staying totally pure, totally efficient. That's a holler. That's a big healthy yell there. There, perfect. So that really goes di te no, ba bam over. But he goes di te no. Forget the notes, forget the note values, forget the pitch. Let's just make this artistic. Now that is something I never noticed. Remy covers on O ferma in cor in petto on that D, but he opens up the D on verrò later. That's surprising. That's very surprising. I would have thought he would have opened that up. You hear how it's not fat, it's so he's lining it up more, he's covering it a little bit, closing it down a little bit instead of It's a subtle distinction, but actually volume-wise, probably somewhat significant, which is why I'm surprised he does that there. I mean, his voice still sounds very fresh at the end of this production. You know, that's something to keep in mind this whole time. For Giovanni and Leporello, it's after, 3 hours of singing. Commendatore, it's only after, he sings in the first scene, sings a little bit towards the end, and then sings this big scene. That's it. It's actually a relatively small role. But Giovanni's been on stage most of the last 3 hours. So, all to say, you do different things to conserve your voice at that point, but, at this point, you just got to rip. So I'm actually quite surprised Remy covers on that E. D, eval. Then open on that. Non timor. Wide open. You hear that yelly quality? Verrà. He opens it up there. So now we're about to get Kurt Moll and Remy next to each other, and you'll be able to hear their voices in the only way you can compare voices in an operatic recording, truly, is if they're right next to each other on stage. So this bit here, when he takes his hand, basically Mozart turns it into double time. So he goes, dammi la mano impegno, eccola, ahimè, che c'è questo. It goes basically into double time there to like demonstrate how fucking Giovanni's like, oh, this is bad. This is really bad. Should not have grabbed his hand. I'm screwed. Well, Mozart's a genius, and this is the best scene in opera, so. That's l'ultima. Nell'ultima momento. L'ultima. You're not going to get a pure U on that D. It's not going to go anywhere. L'ultima momento. Open that shit up. È l'ultima. Okay, so can we appreciate the Raimi's voice cuts like a fucking a blade, dude. Listen to how much cut is in, how much steel is in that sound. Meh. So he opts, doesn't do it. That's an artistic choice. It's supposed to be an E and A3. He just goes, meh. It's better that way. Shout it. This is crazy intense. Dude is in real trouble. All high Ds. So whatever value you need to do, let it rip, baby. Raimi is just cutting. I love Kurt Mall. I think he is truly one of the great, maybe the best profundo in opera, in the opera setting of all time. But bro, Raimi is cutting 10 times above right now. You can barely hear them. They're hollering and you can barely hear them in this dissension because the orchestra's blasting so loud. So that is no. That's how it's written. Baritones will opt for no. Do a high A sometimes. Raimi opts for like a yell kind of towards the high A. I think a yell works much better than especially singing the low A. It's just not exciting, and you probably can't hear it. I do kind of a mix. I kind of yell right on the high A when I do it. It's kind of whatever you're feeling in the moment. I think yell. I definitely don't think sing the low A. That just sounds lame. And Raimi goes for just like a kind of straight up yell. And it's going to depend on what your conductor wants. You know, some conductors might want you to do it come scritto, meaning as written, or at least pitch values or pitch lengths as written. Raimi holds his much longer. This is written for a half note in. No, off. Raimi goes, no. Pretty much holds it for like a full measure. Those are all supposed to be half notes. No, si, right? But they're both holding them longer. Okay, this This cannot be overstated. Kurt Mall sings the low D, optional, not written. And you can actually hear it against the orchestra. Absolutely bonkers. The lowest note that's written is that A flat. It's a B. O tempo pio non ba. My low D wouldn't have a fucking chance against the orchestra. The A flat maybe, but that A flat is the lowest note that's written. Pio, pio. That's the lowest note in the commendatore roll. So people are like, oh, A flat, that's not very low. Well, I could sing that. Even a tenor could sing that. Yeah, fuck off. You gotta have a huge A flat to have any shot. Anyway, this is a very famous line. He's one of the very few people that has opted for the low D and actually been heard. He covers that pian as well. Pian, pian, doror. I'm singing all that shit up in pian, doror. Come on. This is another part where, like, you've got to be, so this da qual tremore insolito sento assalir gli spiriti donde escono quel vortici. This is all, like, low middle voice. Chances are, if you're a baritone and you're singing this shit, you're not going to be heard. Even at a D3, y'all, that's what I'm saying. It's like, that's not a low note. But to have the power there to be heard when the orchestra's blaring, like there are plenty of baritones that sing this that they're just going to get drowned out. But you can hear Rami very, very clearly because he has so much power in that middle part of his range. Because he has so much lower, so much, below that he can use as a bass. It's also very speech-like, so in addition to getting the text out here, da qual tremore insolito sento assalire spiriti, you've got to get that text out because it's so powerful and so harrowing and horrifying, quite frankly. He's getting ripped apart. His soul's getting ripped apart at this point. You also want to keep a legato line so you can actually be heard. So it's not just text. It has to be all the text, but it has to have some legato singing underneath so there's a line of tone to be heard. And the most badass. There's barely any opera chorus in this show. There's only like a couple scenes. There's one, a couple scenes in Act 1, and then this scene. Tutto a tue colpe poco. It's basically saying all your sins. You deserve way worse for all the shit you've done in your life, buddy. And there's a worse pain waiting for you. And it's just this huge all male chorus of like, yeah, you're fucked. And it's so badass. Listen to that orchestra. It closes that key terror as well. But look at this text. Who lacerates my soul? Who torments my body? What che strazio a me? What look of desperate? Yeah. So like this is like actually pretty close to proper translation actually. It's brutal. This is brutal. This is the guy who's been absolutely coasting on looks and confidence and wealth and is unstoppable, is unshakable, gets away with everything, and now he's finally getting it. It's crazy. Che terror. He closes that K instead of che terror. I'm telling you, I'm surprised he's not opening all of those D's on the open E vowels. I'm surprised he's closing any of those down, especially this close to the end of the show. I mean, get the volume, Raimi. Nah, he does it. Closes that one. I don't know. Forget it, dude. Forget it. Oh my God. It's just such a masterpiece. Believe it or not the end of the show. There's a finale, because of like the time period it's written, where it's like all the other characters come on. They're like, see, this is like what happens to you if you do all this bad shit. We have to have a very clear moral. Often nowadays the show ends with this scene, which I think is how it should be done for sure. We are not doing it that way this year, even though all the singers wish we did. We're doing the actual finale. This is just the most epic ending to a show ever. So, point out a few more things that Raimi does differently and that I've taken from Raimi, because this is one of my favorite performances. You hear that yell, which he does come escrito. There we go. Oh, so that's a D4 yell. He it's actually a little off pitch too, so he's already getting into that kind of yell mode. But I'll sing it how it's written. So it goes, che inferno, che terror. Listen to what he does. It's radically different. It's also pretty much what I do when I perform it. Like, how much cooler is that than che inferno, che terror. It's like Mozart was expecting you to do something with it. Che inferno, che terror. And they're just yelling at the end. Full on yell. Absolutely, we're going to listen to this whole final section again, because we're listening to Kermal's low D too. It's just unbelievably good. It's just, if this scene doesn't get you getting jacked up about how cool opera can be, and not all opera is this cool, I'll admit, but this opera is this cool. Enjoy. Oh my God. Oh my God. I can't believe I get to sing it. Like, I can't believe I sang that shit last night. And a few more performances left. It's it's just the most incredible thing. It's the most incredible thing to be a part of. Wow. All right. Woo. 140. So what I do? About an hour and 10 minutes. Now, actually, believe it or not, I could go much, much slower with this analysis. This was my speed run. I could literally talk about what they're doing vocally on every pitch, this entire scene, and why they're doing it, and why the exact vowel choice they're making is why they're making it. And that's just talking about the singing. You know, talk about the Italian, could talk about the costuming, the orchestra, the drama of the piece, the acting choices, especially doing those close-ups, what they're doing facially, like inner monologue shit. This is still just scratching the surface of how deep you have to get in a role to really do it justice. Like, if you really want to do a great job with a role, you have to get 10 layers deep. You learn the notes, right? This is how we all start. I was listening to a recording of myself from undergrad the other day because I realized there was access to it on my undergrad's website. And it's like, yeah, I remember I didn't know hardly any of my translations well enough to know what I was saying in time. A lot of the stuff was messy. The Italian was actually okay for undergrad, but still shit. The singing, absolute trash. Like, no support, no legato, no nothing. And, no character thought into what I was doing aside from, like, it was a boss buffo role, so I was just, like, being blustery and shit. But, like, what I've done, this prep I've done for Giovanni is, like, he's a real fucking character on stage. Like, when I'm up there, I'm thinking in character. I'm responding to lines in character. And I know this sounds obvious, but, like, you really have to get deep to be at a point, especially, like, when you've had to memorize so much music and text and translations and what everyone else is doing, to really be able to respond authentically and have authentic facial expressions to, like, oh, this fucking guy, God, like, I needed him to show up. Mancava questo in ver. Like, this kind of stuff. And it feels really cool to I've never gotten this deep with a role. And part of that is because I think it's a perfect role for me in absolutely every possible way. It just is. It's a role I've known would be good. It's a dream role, and I finally got to do it, and I hope I sing it a bunch throughout my career. But my point is, like, me talking about vocal technique for an hour and 15 minutes is just one tiny sliver of what we have to do as professional opera singers to prepare accordingly. It's a huge undertaking. And you can get away with doing a lot less, especially if you're a decent natural actor and you can sing well. Most people won't care and won't notice the difference. But it's like where you set your own standards, right? Like, everyone thought I did a great job with that undergrad performance. And at the time, I thought I did a great job. And now looking back, I'm like, holy shit, like, does that even count? It counts. It's undergrad. It does. It's like, whatever, building blocks. But it's been fun to deep dive and be like, okay, how deep can I get? And also, I can still look back and be like, okay, I see places where I can get even deeper in a role. Now, I've been studying this role for a few years now. I started studying in my first year at AVA. Now I'm at the end of my third year. So it's pretty deep. It's pretty deep in my bones, but there are always places to go deeper. And there are definitely still things I'd like to improve on, vocally, character-wise, whatever. It's just wild. It's really, doing this role has really reinvigorated my excitement about opera. I was really teetering, to be honest, for a while. Like, do I really want to do this? Like I said, I love the YouTube stuff. And I know I could grow that a shit ton if I just focused more time on it. Love the bass gang stuff. Love it, and opera, it's a lot. It's a big weight to carry, but shit, man. You get to do shit like this. I mean, there's nothing like performing something like this live with orchestra. Nothing, in my experience of life so far. There may be other things that can match it that are different, but it's a pretty peak experience. So that's that, guys. I hope you enjoyed this pretty extensive pretty extensive vocal analysis of what's up. I hope you guys get a little look inside my brain about what we do as professional opera singers, right? Different than people who sing it as a hobby or people that go on fucking America's Got whatever and try to sing opera. This is a little sneak peek about what it's really about. It's not about trying to mimic some singer on a recording and then calling that opera. No. There's a lot more that goes into it, and I'm very passionate about that, and I will die on that hill. And I will always acknowledge talent for people who have it. Like a video I really enjoyed doing was when Rob and Austin from Home Free sang Nessun Dorma, because I think both of them, especially Rob, as far as operatic technique is concerned, like crazy amount of potential. Like, what? Like, absolutely insane. But like that, what those two did, that's not being an opera singer, right? There's so much more that goes into being an opera singer. Someone that just pops out an operatic aria, that does not make you an opera singer. It just doesn't. It's like, I fucking, a couple years in a row did my taxes with H&R Block on my own. Wow, am I a fucking accountant? No, I'm not an accountant. I don't know anything about taxes. I don't know if that's a one-to-one comparison, but it's like that. This is cool. This is revealed. I hope you guys have enjoyed the passion I've got for this, especially this particular scene. Hope you guys got some appreciation from these unbelievable singers. I hope I hit home how crazy it is to sing against an orchestra as a bass. And that's just one part of everything that's happening in this scene. There's so much more you have to be keeping track of, not just the singing. It's all got to be like baked in muscle memory. This was super fun. Guys, please like, subscribe. If you got a lot of enjoyment out of this, join my Patreon for sure. If you'd like me to do more deep dives into opera, I mean, dude, I can talk all day about it. Like, this is the easiest and most fun stuff for me to comment on. So like, if I could shift part of my content towards like actually talking about what I do, yes, please. So leave all suggestions. Guys, I love you. Thanks so much for the support. This has been really fun to comment on. I hope you guys enjoyed my breakdown of the best scene in opera, and I'll see you for the next one. Peace.